with Arsenal's attempts to sign Real Madrid superstar Vinny Junior. We can join Gary Cottrell now, who's in Dublin following Arsenal's preparations. Always lovely to see you, Gary. So let's just bring us up to speed then with this situation. Are Arsenal going to get their man, do you think?
Well, when it comes to the Real Madrid media outlets, the social media, the digital platforms, their TV station, it's Vinicius Junior everywhere. He's popping up here, there, everywhere. He was featured heavily, arriving at the training ground, his first training session back at the club since the World Cup, before everybody else, 8:30 yesterday morning, then taking part in a double training session, scoring, running, smiling, meeting Jose Mourinho and the coaching staff, and then leaving around 6 o'clock in the evening after most of the other players. And then again today featured heavily on the social media and digital platforms of Real Madrid, arriving again early and doing some gym work and sitting on a football in the middle of the Real Madrid training ground and giving an interview to the club TV with that smile still on his face, and a very smiley interview, you have to say, indeed. Here's just one of the quotes from it. "It's gone very well," he said, "meeting the new coach and the new players and training very hard. Mourinho wants me to be as I've always been, happy, cheerful, and that I play my football." Well, that is where our quote ends, but actually I'm just going to read you a bit more from that interview, because once again the message being got across by Vinicius Junior on the club platforms, because he uses the word "we" a lot in the next statement. We have to prepare physically so that during the season we have fewer injuries and we can count on everybody. So if you're Real Madrid and you're trying to make it clear that either the player is your player, is important to you, the new head coach wants him desperately and he's not for sale, or if you're Real Madrid and you want to make it clear all those things, but also if he is to go, he's going to go for a lot of money, it's going to take a lot of negotiating, then why wouldn't you use your club channels to get that message across? But my understanding from the very start, from the Real Madrid side of things, is that there's, never say zero, Vicky, but a 0.1% chance of Vinicius Junior not being at Real Madrid next season.
OK, all right. Thanks for now, Gary. We'll come back to you because you're going to follow all things Arsenal for us. So, Dharmesh, just talk us through the different ways that this could play out for Vinicius Junior then.
They look like there's about 4 options here with regard to Vinicius Junior. Number one, he signed a new contract at Real Madrid, and all of this goes away. He stays at Real Madrid. Big part of Jose Mourinho plans moving forward. Number two, he doesn't sign a new contract and he gets sold, but given what we've just heard from Gary Cottrell, a 0.01% chance of him not being at Real Madrid come the start of, by the end of the transfer window. Then he doesn't sign a new contract and he leaves for free, or is able to sign a pre-contract agreement with a club outside Spain in January, or probably the high-risk strategy as far as Real Madrid are concerned is that he doesn't sign a new contract and they use the final year of his deal to still try and convince him to stay at Real Madrid. But given what Gary is saying there, it looks like Vinicius Junior will be there at Real Madrid beyond the end of this transfer window. I just think that there needs to be some sort of clarity one way or another on his contract, simply because if a player of his ability in the current market, people were talking 130, 140 million pounds. If he doesn't sign a new contract in the next couple of weeks, for example, or is not giving the indication that he is going to, Real Madrid then have got a bit of a problem, because they're coming towards the end of a transfer window, the last transfer window where they will effectively hold the cards, because they can still get a transfer fee for him. Come January, he can speak to clubs outside Spain and sign a pre-contract agreement. 6 months after that, he can go anywhere in the world that he wants for free. But from what Gary's saying at the moment, he's got great contacts at Real Madrid. Vinicius Junior staying at the club at the moment, but I still think there needs to be a bit of clarity with regard to his contract moving forward.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, the thing that everyone's talking about there, Michael, is the salary that he's going to command. So could this backfire in any way for Arsenal should they get hold of him?
I think salary is the key one, Vicky. I mean, especially if he can speak to non-Spanish clubs in January, look, when a player of this would potentially come to us, a bit like Mesut Ozil when he left Real Madrid to join Arsenal, it elevates the football club and it will delight the supporters, but it also would elevate the wage structure. What would he command in terms of his wage? His current wage at Real Madrid would probably be higher than most at Arsenal now anyway. What would it say to the likes of Declan Rice? What would it say to the likes of Bukayo Saka? I mean, they might turn around and say, as long as he wins trophies for Arsenal, we don't particularly care. But that's probably the one very few negatives I would say on this, what would be an exciting deal. But hearing what obviously Darmish has said and what Gary has said, we'd probably put it in the unlikely basket at the moment.
Okay, the unlikely basket. I like that. Okay, let's get back to Gary Cottrell, because Vinicius isn't the only Brazilian international that Arsenal are keen to sign. We can hear the seagulls there in Dublin around you. But what about the pursuit of this Newcastle great Bruno Guimarães then?
Well, the very unlikely basket I would put Vinny in, but the very likely basket I think you put his fellow Brazilian Bruno in, because we know that procedure, isn't it, for big players wanting to move between big clubs. So yeah, I think in terms of Bruno, Arsenal are going to get their way. In terms of Vinny, potentially not. I have no independent confirmation of what I'm about to say, but the feeling in Spain is that those talks between Vinicius Junior's representatives and Real Madrid will take place tomorrow.
Thank you, as always, Gary. So Bruno Guimarães, potentially, we're talking about seagulls, not going to...
Just on that, David Ornstein from The Athletic is just now reporting that Arsenal are nearing total agreement with Newcastle United to sign Bruno Guimarães. It's something that we probably saw in the pipeline, given how this deal has been going so far this summer. There's a desire, he says, among all parties to bring a situation to a close, and the deal now on course for completion. We will, of course, follow that up now, if we can stand that. Formally went to Newcastle, as we reported this week, with a bid that got rejected. There was always going to be the expectation that Arsenal would go back in again and to try and get this deal done, because there's a player that he desperately wants to go to Arsenal if, and this is a big if, Arsenal and Newcastle can agree a fee, because we shouldn't confuse the deal that's happening now with Alexander Isak from last summer, because Alexander Isak said, I'm not going to train, I'm not going to play. Bruno Guimarães has turned up to La Manga at their pre-season training camp. He's doing everything that is being asked of him with regards to Newcastle United until there is agreement between the two parties. If there isn't, he'll stay put. But the direction of travel now would indicate that that direction of travel is heading from the northeast to North London.
You imagine Bruno might have spoken to the new head coach, Matthias Jaissler, of his potential plans, or maybe to say, look, thank you, wish you all the best, but I want to pursue a new challenge. Of course, no Europe for Newcastle next season. They brought a lot of young players in, but a lot of senior players going out as well. And I think Newcastle need to move on from this now, don't they?
Okay. What about players leaving Arsenal then? Because
every
we're
new
hearing
season
about
starts
lots of
here,
incomings potentially.
not under the bright
We
lights.
saw Gary Cottrell out there in Dublin ahead of Arsenal's pre-season game against Real Betis. One player who is not in Dublin is Christian Norgard.
But on the training
we reported
pitches,
earlier
where
this week that
rebuilt,
Arsenal and Everton had agreed a deal for the player for around £7 million. Well, he hasn't travelled to Dublin, and we are told that he has now been given permission to travel to Merseyside to have a medical with Everton. That one now looks like Christian Norgard, when and not if, will become an Everton player, all being well with his medical.
Every session counts.
Okay.
Expect another 3 or 4 centre-backs to leave Chelsea. You know, the likes of Axel Disasi and Badia Shield, they're still on the books at Chelsea. We would kind of expect movement from 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those players still, because he wants to really streamline that squad. Doesn't want to be in a position where previous managers have had to have one training pitch for all the players that he can select from, and then another training pitch with another 20-odd players who aren't in the plans. You just can't function like that. It's not sustainable financially, at least.
But wasted no time getting the squad back into rhythm.
Atmosphere in the group as well. He wants players who he wants there and who want to be at Chelsea.
Yeah, makes sense. What about the forward
line?
The
atmosphere around the training ground has been positive from the very first.
Newcastle, no. Nicholas Jackson. What can you tell us about Nicholas Jackson?
My understanding is that's not the case.
Focused,
I know
energetic, and
we've been
determined
with Tottenham Hotspur before. there was some word on it earlier on social media doing the rounds, but my understanding
Every
that's not
player
true.
understands that pre-season offers a
Chelsea
fresh
transfers
opportunity.
is very rare. I come at the top of my head, I think the last one was Gus Poyet in 2002.
To earn a place in Arteta's plans before the competitive fixtures begin.
Forwards, a left-sided and potentially a striker as well. And with no Europe
stars
for
are still
Chelsea,
away following their
you
involvement
might be
in the
one
FIFA
that
World
they'd
Cup
consider selling for the right price. Chelsea they've done some good business, but they've got a very big squad at the moment.
Yeah.
To rejoin the
no
squad
Europe
after completing
is
their
such a
scheduled
massive
holidays.
factor when you try and complete your squads after this deadline. European football is basically a second season with the amount of games now in the new European format. You just wonder,
Arsenal continue
like
building
Dom was talking
towards
about
the new campaign.
too many centre-halves for Chelsea, might have won too many forwards as well, but he won't be going to Tottenham Hotspur as it stands.
OK, if he's not going to Tottenham,
One
what are the
player
options
who was
for him,
notably
Dom?
absent from
Well,
training
earlier on
is
this
William
transfer
Saliba.
window, and in transfer windows past, actually, there's always been an interest from Aston Villa for Nicholas
French
Jackson. It's
defender
easy
is
to see
currently
why.
recovering
Unai
from a
Emery,
back injury,
the head coach
suffered-
manager at Aston Villa, used to manage Nicholas Jackson when he broke through at Villarreal. In
During
fact,
the World
he
Cup, and remains
avoided
under the
buying
supervision
other
of
more
Arsenal's
experienced
medical team.
strikers because he believed in Nicholas Jackson that much to give him his opportunity. Now, there is an issue and a
While there
problem
is no reason for panic,
regarding any
supporters will
kind
naturally
of
be hoping to
purchase for
see one of
Aston
their
Villa
most-
and Nicholas Jackson. That's all to do with UEFA's 45-day rule. Settle
Important
down. Let me
defenders
try and
return
explain
to full fitness
what this all means.
as quickly as possible.
Now, UEFA want to kind of avoid swap deals because it impacts on the
Saliba has
profit
become
and
a key figure in Arsenal's
sustainability in their
defense over the past
financial
few
books
seasons.
for clubs.
His
So, for
composure on the
example,
ball,
if a club buys from another club, they cannot sell to that same club
ability to
within
read the game,
45
and
days because
partnership
it's
at the heart of the
deemed
back line
as a
have
swap
played a-
deal. If that deal happens, then the profit will not be realised
Major role
in
in the
that
team's
immediate
success.
year. To
His
break
recovery
this
will
down
be carefully
more easily,
managed
I know this
to
is not making that much sense at the moment, but do bear with me. For example, when a club buys
he
a
is
player,
fully ready when the
the
season
selling
begins.
club can put
Away from
the
the injury
full
concerns.
amount of that transfer fee into that year's books. When you buy
Arteta's
a player,
primary focus
for
remains
example,
building
say
a
for
squad
£30
capable
million,
of competing at the highest.
you don't need to say you've spent £30 million in the first year.
Pre-season
It's
is about much more
amortised
than
over the
improving
length of a
fitness.
contract.
It is
So people can see that buying and selling, you can kind of make a profit for a particular year. Now,
While creating
UEFA have
understanding
noticed that
between
maybe
teammates,
clubs are trying to
integrating new
circumvent that
arrivals,
rule by trying to buy and sell between the same club, because when you buy,
Refining
you can
tactical
split the
systems
cost
and
over a
ensuring
certain
every
amount
player
of
is
years, whereas when
physically-
you sell, it goes in as a profit for that full year. So if we look at the Chelsea
mentally
Aston
prepared.
Villa example,
Every sprint
Aston Villa
completed during
sold
training,
Morgan
every-
Rogers to Chelsea. £117 million. They made a huge profit.
Tactical instruction
80
from
odd
the
million
coaching staff,
pounds when you take into
and
account
every
the amount that was
competitive drill
owed to
serves a
Middlesbrough.
purpose.
So they can put that profit straight into this year's books. However, if they wanted to go and buy Nicholas Jackson,
These are the moments where winning habits are
it will
formed
come
long
within
before
that
the first Premier
45-day
League.
period. So UEFA will say, well, that might be deemed as a swap deal. So the profit
Whistle
that
is
you've made
blown.
from Morgan Rogers,
Competition for
because you're
places
buying
is
Nicholas
expected
Jackson
to be
from
fierce.
Chelsea, will have to be split among 3 years, rather than
You can only
you
spend a
immediately
third
Young
of it.
players will be eager to catch
doing
the
it
manager's
on
eye.
that first year.
Experienced
And we
stars
all
will
know
be
that
looking-
Aston Villa have got various financial issues to try and comply, especially with the new
to maintain
UEFA
their
rules.
positions.
That's
And
why
any
it's
new
so
signings
important for
will
them
want
to
to
get the
settle
full
into the
profit
squad
in
as
this
quick-
year. So the alternative is, I know what, Aston Villa, let's go and get a loan for Nicholas
as
Jackson. However,
Healthy
you
competition
cannot
often
get
brings out the very
two
best in
players from the
players.
same club on loan at the same time. Aston Villa have already signed Alejandro
And
Garnacho
Arteta will
from
welcome the
Chelsea
intensity.
on loan. So that's where
Arsenal's
there's a bit of a
preseason
sticking
schedule
point.
will
It's not impossible for them to buy Nicholas Jackson. They can, but they know that they will forego some of the
Also
profit in
include
that
a number
first
of
year
friendly
that they
matches,
made and the
giving
huge profit that
supporters
they
their
made
first glimpse
from
of how
Morgan
the team
Rogers.
is-
Make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but we're actually slightly annoying them for them in that sense.
Rules
Shaping
are the
up.
rules,
Rules are
aren't
rules.
they?
These
We're going to
fixtures
go and
provide
read the
valuable
rule book
opportunities to
from
build match
UEFA.
fitness.